Jump down to the state that so across the top, like get that kind of TLS, something in even equal.
Are you talking about default technology or
I'm talking about the entity of the interoperability for receiver.
Oh, you think it should be there? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it obvious? I thought it.
I don't know. It seems to be like I don't know how you, well, actually, that might be kind of get some measures in terms of how many downloads it may be the same person downloads it. Yeah.
So, funny thing, because I didn't go to my phone, the first version is when I looked at the download, and it seems like that
that's what I was trying to
yes.
No, he's not here.
So I think that will go down.
Okay, it's time to get started. So on the mail list, Jim Schott agreed to be the Jabber scribe, and Yov is, there he is, agreed to do the note taker. So thank you very much for that. I just started the blue sheets around. So I just sent one clipboard because it looks like we're probably going to be small enough that we can fit. And would somebody in the back close the doors, please? There's, at least from here, it's a fair amount of noise. The note well changed since the last meeting. I don't know if anyone else has told you that. The way in which it changed is RFC 8179 replaced RFC 39-37. So basically the IPR rules were slightly updated in a new RFC, and so now if you want to make sure that you're following all the rules, please review the diffs of the RFCs so that you're up to date. Okay, so now we're to the, we have a note taker, we have started the blue sheets, so we're at, the agenda's on the screen and we're at the agenda bash. Okay, so next item on the agenda is we have 4 documents. That is, all of our chartered work is now with the ISG. We put these action, or all of the items in number 2, 2A through 2D, to deal with any comments on those documents. And I have not seen any. Is anyone aware of some that have not made it to the mail list yet? Okay, then we're done with 2A, B, C, and D. Item 3. These are all potential items for a recharter, and we have a few discussions. So the first one is about updating the PKIX CAA document, and Philip's going to make that presentation.
We're doing the slides off your laptop?
Yes.
Right. Hello, I'm Phil, and I do P. So this is, next slide. So basically, the situation here is that since CAA was originally specified in 2013. We've now got to the point where deployment is going to be mandatory for Web PKI certs from 8th of September. And when certain CAs started implementing it, first of all, people started saying, well, this part of the spec is ambiguous. And so I said, well, right, I'll fix it. And then after I clarified it, people said, well, actually, we preferred it the old way. And yes, so basically, the basis here is that the original intent that we had is obsolete, in that we were trying to do something technically one way, and the way that we use the web and the internet has changed. In particular, CDNs have changed it, and there's a better proposal. So if we go on to the next slide. So what this relates to is the discovery issue. DNS has this pointer mechanism, and as you all know, pointers means problems. And so you have a pointer. There's actually two types, C names and D names. In terms of the on-the-wire protocol, you only ever see C names unless you're doing DNSSEC. And it turns out that there are two subtly different types of delegation these are used for. One type is the purely technical delegation that the DNS people conceived of, which is I have this web service and I am delegating administration of part of the hosting to some other site, and so I CNAME off to that site. The other one is I've got 200 DNS names. You know, I've recorded Komodo.net, Komodo.com, Komodo in 200 different countries, and they all point to the same thing. I want to be able to administer those all as one unit. And the problem is that what you want to do technically for the discovery mechanism in CAA is different for these two uses of CNAME, but you've got no way of knowing the intention of the person when they entered the record. So originally we thought that the type of delegation that we were supporting was this administrative delegation of I have a large portfolios of names, I want to point them all in the same direction. And if you're doing that, then the logic would be that you would follow the pointer, and then you treat that pointer as if that was your starting point for your search and traverse the tree up from that point. That is not what you want to do if you've delegated management of your website to a CDN, because then if you follow up the DNS name to its root, you're going to end up with Akamai's CAA records instead of yours. So I brought this to LAMPS last time when, and I thought that we were just going to correct it, and then somebody pointed out, well, you could have a prefixed SRV record, a prefixed record for CAA, and that would then allow you to define a different semantics for that particular pointer, and you'd have a different discovery rule. And this seemed like the way to go, and allows us to effectively create two different types of delegation as we need for what we need to do. And so the proposal here is that we write a draft that describes that and bring it here and do a very limited BIS on 6844. So if you go to the last slide, this is the proposed charter text. We've got our bullet point to specify a new discovery mechanism, CAA records. One of the things here is that we're talking in terms of CAA, but obviously if you're doing this type of discovery, anything else that looks like CAA should probably discover in the same basis. So we've got to get it right. And then a bit of text to justify it, and a milestone of a BIS draft of 6844, April 2018, which I think is very doable. So, comments?
Please, let's fix this.
Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to take a quick just to get a sense of the room. Who would like to see this action included in the recharter? Hum yes, and then hum no. So who would like to see this included in the proposed revised charter? Hum now for yes. Hum now for no. That's very clear. There was silence for no. So, all right, thank you very much. Thanks, Philip.
Volunteer design.
Why is that not showing? Quinn, you're up next. It's not showing.
I have only one slide. I'm Quinn Dang at NIST. At the last meeting, there was strong interest in adopting SHA-3 as alternatives to SHA-2. And Russ told me to do this. So I have one slide. So the current proposal for me is to specify two hash functions from the shakes. They are called shake 128 with 256 bits of outputs, and the shake 256 with 512 bits of outputs. The reason for me to propose these two functions over the SHA-3s because they can do all the SHA-3 can do. And the shake 256, it has 2 times better performance and like 100% performance improvement over the SHA-3 512. And the shake 128, it has like 24% better performance than the SHA-3 256. So the performance reason is what I propose these two functions for, and they can do everything hashing we need at this moment. And SHA-3 is very secure standard hash function, and they are excellent alternatives to SHA-2s. So this is what Russ told me to do, and this is what I propose to the group to consider today.
What Russ told him to do was generate a one-slide presentation, not what was on it. Just to be clear.
Jim Schott. So hash functions are nice. There's actually no direct use of hash functions in CMS that I can remember. So
yes, there is.
Oh, sorry. You're right. There is one. So the question would be, how exhaustive of a signature algorithm list and an HMAC list are you proposing?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I did not get the question.
How exhaustive of a signature list and an HMAC list are you proposing with this?
And one more advantage for using the shakes over the SHA-3 right now is that for the shake, you can do the one-pass MAC very nice way. So it will be very efficient in MACing. And also, if you do generate random number generation, it would be the same thing too. One single pass, very efficient, and the shake is built based on random permutation, but basically going to be random functions because we have the capacity would be turned off from the output. So they're very efficient functions for those purposes.
Quinn, what I think Jim was trying to ask is which set of signature algorithms would you want to use this hash with? ECDSA, RSA, DSA, what?
They are good for all. It depends on what signature algorithms we would like to have.
That's what I'm asking.
That's exactly what Jim's question was.
So I didn't understand the question. I thought you asked me how this kind of thing want to be used, because you asked on the Mac.
That's also
HMAC is a possibility.
People could do HMAC with any hash function, but with this construction, you don't need to do HMAC. You do one pass, and you gain a lot of performance from it, and it's proven secure. You need to follow the structure that we have with the 185 SP 185.
Jim Charlie. I love the idea of doing one pass and dumping HMAC. Do you know how many people I've talked to who can't understand that that's even possible?
It
Let alone would know how to put it into their protocol.
It depends on the mode. The HMAC, because the hash function, it had length extension property with the SHA-2, so you have to do 2 passes to make it a PRF. But for the SHA-3, yeah.
That's not the problem.
Okay.
I understand how it works. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is education, and can they actually change their spec to do something other than HMAC?
Oh, understood. Yeah. For example, if somebody using the Shake 256 with output 512 with the, let's say, curve P384, and then the signing algorithm will truncate the hash output itself to match the size of the curve. So that would be just fine. So currently, if you use SHA-512 with P384, that would happen. And it would happen the same thing with Shake 2512 Shake 256/512 right now. And the same thing with Shake 128 output with output to 56 bits. That's good for, I say, good for anything else. If you do P256, that would be fine, perfectly fine too. RSA is fine.
I don't know that this is Sean Turner. I don't know that we necessarily need to pick the actual signature algorithms yet, but the last time we had this discussion, it was, the elliptic curve, NIST curves that match the strengths. And then it was, RSA, PKCS 1.5 and RSA PSS. So it's like those, 6 or however many there are. So I think if we were going to adopt this, we don't necessarily have to pick the algorithms.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm glad I made it in time. Why? I mean, is there any reason to believe SHA-2 isn't good enough?
As Walt said, they say that the proposal adopt as alternatives or alternative just in case something happens and people don't want to use SHA-2. SHA-2 is still good right now. I'm not saying SHA-2 is bad. But the whole purpose is not to replace SHA-2. It's just alternative to SHA-2. And in case people want to use it, they can use it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been trending in security towards having fewer code point assignments for alternatives that don't have a clear security rationale. And it's completely unclear what the security rationale for this is. So I guess I would be in favor of having, if you wish to have an informational code point assignment with a not recommended marker on it, I have no problem with that. But I don't understand why it makes sense to have this be an IETF item marked on any kind of recommended status.
For ciphers, we have different ciphers, and for hash, it would be not too bad to have a second set of hash functions.
Well, I mean, the only 2 ciphers that we're actively using now are AES and Cha-Cha, and both of those have clear rationales for why you'd use one versus the other. AES because of AES-NI and because of the standard, and Cha-Cha because it's much faster on non-AES-NI systems. So, what is the rationale for this?
There's strong rationale for this because Shake design is way different from any AX design, such as SHA-2, and is very secure. the security margin right now is higher than SHA-2. If you check overall, so those are security reasons for the shakes and the SHA-3 to stand on feet over here. And internal performance, it's comparable to the shake comparable to SHA-2 for now.
Sure, but like SHA-2 is like a giant security margin.
And
if we thought that wasn't true, then we have SHA-512. I mean, so I'm just not understanding, like, the backup to SHA-256 is SHA-512. And I understand NIST went a lot of effort to do SHA-3, but that's not our problem. I mean, I guess I feel like this keeps coming by and saying, like, why don't you have SHA-3? And like, I keep getting the same answer, which is why.
What is the problem with one of the reasons I just explained to you?
The problem is that, as I say, that as far as we know, the security margin for SHA is like enormous.
Still pretty good. But compared to SHA-3 has a thicker margin, and it's symmetric operations way different from SHA-2, so it gives up a lot more comfortable in terms of security. Because if something goes wrong with the AES design, then it would be a good backup.
The AES design?
No, AIX design.
Yeah, I'm unpersuaded. This just seems like another algorithm.
No, it is.
It is precisely another algorithm.
Okay, they are now algorithm, but they offer a lot of properties and a lot of features, which I believe is very essential to be as a backup or an alternative to SHA-2.
I mean, like, when we start seeing some weakness in SHA-2, we can adopt SHA-3 then.
Huh?
When we start seeing some actual weakness in SHA-2, we can adopt SHA-3 then. Please.
I disagree with Eka here. I think that it's important for every cryptographic primitive that we have, we should have exactly 2 algorithms. One that we can use for current deployment that is, hopefully both should be supported everywhere, but one should always be a backup algorithm, because the thing is that once you know that something is weak and you want to get away from it, it is too late.
It would take 10 years.
To start, yeah, it takes us over 10 years to change an algorithm. I warned people when SHA-2 came out. I said, we've got to start deploying it now. And everybody said, oh, no, we don't. And then when people decided that SHA-1 was about to be broken, suddenly they come to CAB Forum and say, okay, we've got to phase out SHA-1 before certificates that have been already issued are in use will expire. So it went from, okay, we've got plenty of time, to, okay, stop using it now. So that's a data point of, no, I'm not satisfied with, there will be time to deploy something else in the future. I think that we want to have 2 algorithms for each cryptographic use that are based on distinctly different cryptographic primitives. So for public key, we've got RSA and we've got the elliptic curve alternative. For symmetric crypto, we've got AES and we've got Cha-Cha now. And I think that having the same for digest does make sense, because digest at the end of the day is the cryptographic primitive that you depend on most. It's the one that is hardest to change if you screw up.
Channeling Sean Leonard. Is algorithm agility, cryptographic diversity in itself justifiable reasons? Because this issue always comes up and seems like once a decade. And it goes on and echoes a lot of stuff that is essentially what Phil just said. For myself, there is at least a very valid reason to do the Mac stuff with these algorithms, and that is, since they are one pass, they're going to be significantly faster than HMAC.
So I'm, I guess, sort of okay with a Mac algorithm here, though, like, it's not clear to me what setting do people do macking enough data that this performance issue is important, because this always comes up. And like in all the settings we have, so in every setting where you want to encipher, you should be using an AED algorithm. And so what setting do people do enormous size max?
So in the specs, we have authenticated data,
Right.
but it is used far less
Yeah, yeah,
than signed data.
Right, that's my point. And it has to be authenticated data, not the encrypted authenticated data for which you're using AED algorithm.
No, that's auth enveloped data.
But I know, I understand. I'm just saying, like that in any setting where you ought to have been using, where you want both properties, you should be using a GCM, not using this.
Absolutely.
Brian Gondwana, I just wanted to respond to Phil's idea that you have exactly two algorithms, one of which you're using and one of which you aren't. That's the same as having exactly one algorithm. The problem with upgrading is that there's broken implementations in the field or implementations that don't support your new thing, and they all need to be upgraded before you can use the new thing. If it's not being used at all, it's not going to be tested. It's not going to work when you suddenly have to switch to it. Having one algorithm that you're not using ever is the same as not having it.
A data point that I don't think that's been raised here is that if you're going to do ED 448, you have to do SHA-3 anyway. So it's not like we're adding another module to the crypto environment. We're just saying here are the code points to use it as a backup.
Also, to respond to the previous
He's
comments,
proposing only code points for Shake.
to the comments, if you had a backup, some people are probably going to use it, not like everywhere, but it doesn't mean that it just sitting there, nobody will use it. Some people might want to use SHA-3 because it's ready and they have some reason to do so. We just, I can't conclude that, you know, for example, like SHA-512 is currently a backup for SHA-256, for example. But there are people using SHA-512. It's not like it's sitting there, does nothing.
Yeah, I just wanted to reply to the idea that some people trying it occasionally is enough. There will be implementations that don't support it correctly and nobody will discover until it's too late and you need to upgrade to it, at which point there are implementations that don't interoperate anymore. You need to, if you're going to specify something, then it needs to be a tested configuration that's used enough that everyone will be testing with it before it becomes your only option.
Yeah, so hope that if it were to be adopted, then some vendors here would have some code running and test it. That's my hope. But it's up to people here if they want to use it. The reason and the reasons are excellent to me. But people might disagree with what I think. But I see the reason is very strong.
Max Pala, Cable Labs. I think that the argument about algorithm agility is sufficient for adopting or starting this work.
Okay, let's do a hum. In doing the recharter, do we want to include this in the proposed text to the ISG? Yes and no. Okay. Do we want to include the Shake part of the specification for PKIX and SMIME in the recharter? Hum now for yes. Hum now for no. That's pretty clear. Okay, thank you, Quinn.
Thank you. We will be happy about this.
So I thought I'd bring some controversy. So this is the first issued PKIX extension. There isn't a draft for this yet, but no draft yet.
Did you make an IPR declaration? I'm not kidding, actually, right?
Actually, I think I probably did when I first proposed this 12 years ago.
Okay.
Yes, this is not, so next one. So this is not a new proposal. However, it is one that when it was originally developed, we didn't do the thing that it was being proposed for. So basically, when I proposed going down to really short life certificates, 3-day certificates, then you don't need to worry about revocation because essentially your certificate is valid for the same length of time as an OCSP token. And then people are looking at this and they're saying, oh, yeah, but you don't know how long the certificate has been valid for. And that's one of the things that I look at, they said, when I'm looking at the certificate, because you know that if you're on a site and the certificate is like 6 months old, that site is much less likely to be fraudulent than one that is 5 seconds old. Because, you know, it's not being taken down. And with certificate transparency, this means, you know, it becomes even more so, because presumably there are people looking at the certificate transparency logs or paying people to look at them to detect fraudulent or confusing registrations. So older certificates are evidence of longevity. And so the solution that was proposed then was this member since extension, you know, like you have on your American Express card. If you have an American Express card, it says how long you've been with the company. And so anyway, so next slide, please. So why now? Well, short-lived certificates are coming back onto the agenda. And the other reason is we're starting to get issues together with user-accessible safety information. In that, one of the problems with the current internet and web is that it's, you know, we keep telling users to avoid the bad parts of the internet, and we don't give them any tools for knowing which those parts of the web are. And the few tools that we have are being taken away from them. The certificate dialog disappeared from one major browser recently. But this is a piece of information that when you tell users, well, this site has been up since 1992 or since 2005, that is a piece of information which, when they see it, actually conveys useful data to them, because they're used to judging the, you know, in MeetSpace, you go into a firm and it says established 1997, and that tells you something. So, and we were looking at this for our Safe Browser project. So next slide. Objections that I've received back, one of them was, well, we own the browser, ours is the only browser that counts, and we're the only people that are going to decide the future. Yeah.
Like, our legitimate arguments can start with saying they don't involve mischaracterizing what I was saying.
It wasn't you that said it.
You're talking about Sleevey? Well, I think Sleevey wasn't saying we're the only browser that counts either.
Oh, yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
Well, that's what I received.
Oh, that's really quite a different issue.
So, you know, we do have a browser. We do have, you know, a few million users. And another objection was that, well, revocation doesn't work, PKIX doesn't work, CAs don't work. And I don't think that, you know, if you're doing web PKI, you're doing PKIX. And this is a piece of information that the CA can put in a certificate in an auditable fashion. The main issue that has come up that is tricky is this information is in certificate transparency, so why don't you just look there? And there are two answers that I've got to that. One is that if you're going to say, okay, that information is in certificate transparency, you just go and look, well, then somebody's got to write a draft to explain how to look. And that's probably going to be a lot more complicated than a draft that says, here's the extension. The other thing is that I'm not sure that anybody's talking about writing their browser in such a way that the browser is going to proactively grovel through the CT logs and obtain this information, and so that they can present it to the user. I don't think that that's going to happen. And the particular context in which I'm thinking about using this is, if I get a certificate that says that it's been around, this key has been around, or this subject has been around for 5 years, maybe then I don't insist on getting the revocation information. However, if I get the certificate and it says, okay, this was issued in the past 5 hours, then maybe I'm going to be very particular and check before I take the user to that site. So it's not a question about getting access or blocking access to the site. It's a question of, is this a part of the internet where the browser wants to make additional checks? So if we go to the next slide. So this is the proposed charter text saying examine. So, you know, basically we'd have to look into this a bit further before deciding whether to go on it, perhaps, in that it might be one of those things that when you actually try it out in practice, it turns out not to be such a good idea, but that's a charter text.
I feel Robin Wilson from Internet Society. I know you've thought this through, but I wanted to kind of test one angle of it from the user experience perspective, particularly about short-lived certs. I think, I mean, you and I have talked about this before at an IETF, about the number of warnings that I get from a browser plugin that says, this certificate has just changed.
Right.
You might want to worry about it. And actually, there's a long random-looking prefix in the URL of that the certificate points to. And at the time, I had a privacy concern about that because it appeared to me that might be a linkable value. You reckoned it was probably actually more likely to be an artifact of things like server farms. If it's going to happen a lot, how do we stop that from skewing the picture here and apparently warning people away from bits of the internet that you would probably think to be quite safe? Okay, yeah, and here we come to a problem with UI and web browsers, and one of the problems is that the security UI community has basically done a bad job. I mean, we had this with SMIME, where you send somebody a signed SMIME email, and what would come out was, warning, this message is signed. And it's kind of like, you know, the security UI people, basically the pathology has been, they tried something that bombards the user with a lot of useless information. They then conclude, oh, this is impossible because our crappy approach didn't work, therefore nobody can do it. And so because they did something that we told them wouldn't work, and because they kept doing it, and because they won't ever ask us, how's a way that might work, we're in this cycle of, they're saying, oh, you can't do usable UI, you can't present the user with safety information that makes sense to them, it's impossible. And no, I don't think it's impossible, but maybe the solution requires a garbage collection on certain institutions, security usability people. Robin Wilson, just one very quick comeback. In the normal run of events, just using my browser, I wouldn't see any of that stuff at all, even legitimate warnings. It's only because I've got a third-party plugin that I'm seeing any of it. Right. Even though it may be presented in ways that you think are poor UX, which I agree with. But my point is, how do we avoid the bad parts of that UX, given what you're trying to achieve here? Okay, well, the other question here is, since you're from Internet Society and since you've just made the acquisition of OTA, that is not a part of this problem that I think belongs in IETF space, because IETF has said that it doesn't want to do user experience, but the OTA has done user experience, and in a way is all about user experience, so that will probably be a part of the problem to take there.
Paul Hoffman, so you said at the beginning you hadn't given us a draft. So I think it's way too early for us to look at charter text because I have no idea what first issued means. First issued by this CA, first issued by any CA, first issued by a CA who trusts another CA to have issued it earlier. I would really want to see a little bit more definitiveness on what the what the intended extension semantics would be before we considered a charter issue.
Yeah, I actually got up to ask roughly Paul's question, which is, say I change CAs, what is the value of first issued in the new certificate?
Well, if you can provide a CSR for your new key that is countersigned with the old one, then that would be a way that you could establish that you had continuity of provenance across the keys. Yeah, I mean, there are ways of doing it if you decide that you want to do it. I think you probably, you know, from thinking not as a CA that happens to have a large chunk of the market, one of the objections that I had from other CAs when I first proposed it was, well, this will just lock you into one CA. So I think that from a market point of view, what you would have to do is to provide a mechanism that allows somebody to move from one CA to another. But because you've got the ability to link keys, that is soluble in a technical form.
Sure. My second question is, which relying parties do you believe wish to do this?
What?
Which relying parties do you believe wish to present the user this information?
I think that it's not information that you would present in primary Chrome, but it would probably be information that if somebody clicks on the padlock icon and is looking at the certificate, at that point, this is a piece of information that would be useful to present to the user.
I mean, it's certainly true that that when you click on the padlock icon, you click enough things, eventually we'll show you the entire certificate, right? But which I guess my question, in that sense, I suppose it's true. But my question, I suppose, was really which relying parties do you think are interested in being able to present this information to the user in some way?
Well, right now, we have all these projects to try and explain to people how to be safe online. But we don't have an ability to tell them how to be safe online because, the UI is all over the place. One browser has changed its certificate UI for SSL, 5 times in the past year?
Sure. No, I understand that. Yeah. But, contrary to your comments earlier, those decisions were made based on security research, not based on just, being idiots. It wasn't us, by the way. So, I guess I'm just trying to understand, my impression is that most of the browsers, that's all the major browsers, have either said nothing or have no interest in this. So I'm trying to figure out, who the consumers are.
So I have an answer. Rich Sauls. I think it would be useful in an email or other when you're decrypting or verifying signatures that were generated a while ago and you've got a cert, and then you can see that, yes, this was the same thing that happened back when it was first signed or encrypted. That's a more useful use case to me than the web PKI.
So, hi, this is Sean Turner again. So, realizing that you started your presentation off with, you wanted to start off with some fireworks. And we have the internet, so I went and did a search for what happened last time. And the summary from the minutes from 7/26/07 was that there was 3 things you proposed. The list discussion was not positive for any of these proposals. For example, the member since extension seems more like a way for long-established CAs to lock in clients, i.e. a marketing feature that might disproportionately benefit VeriSign at the time, which I guess would now be semantic. So I just wanted to read that in that we had actually talked about this before.
Yeah, that's the reason that I suggested that since you have an ability to link one application to another, I think that this is worth making use of.
You meant certificate.
Yeah.
So, hi, Jeff Hodges. So, I don't understand how there would be any link to, in the web PKI sense, web content intent and safety to how long the site has had a certificate. I can get owned at any point in time.
You can get owned at any point in time, but the vast majority of really bad sites are that have been put up by the mafia 5 minutes ago or a day ago. The average length of time that phishing sites are up is really quite small.
I understand that. We already have a signal for that, and that's in the CT system.
So I think I came to the conclusion that I do believe that defining the extension is starting in the wrong end of the problem. Because wouldn't the CAB forum need to agree on what this would mean in form of in business since or issued? That some kind of policy organization would have to define the rules that make it possible to transfer from one CA to another, and it just like it was said here before, and once there is a desire from the policy side of this, from CAB forum, to actually define something like this, then defining the extension is the easy part.
Well, you have a validation criteria, but in this case, in ACME, we now have the IETF specifying validation criteria at a technical level. I would think that the validation criteria would be purely technical. Now, obviously, with anything that IETF does in this area, if you're going to use it in the web PKI, it's going to have to be considered at CAB forum at some level.
I mean,
But,
this sounds like something that is really, really hard to define purely on a technical basis exactly what it means. Like was said before.
Channeling Sean Leonard, I'd like to see or at least compare with the date the organization was established. The point being that that's probably more actionable for an end user or for a computer if continuity is desired. A pointer to the prior cert or private key would be more actionable.
Private key.
It does say private key.
No.
It'd be very actionable, but not in ways that you are.
So Paul Hoffman again. So Paul Hoffman again. I want to reiterate what I said before based on some of the answers you've given since. And actually sort of to echo what Stefan just said, I don't want to be locked into my CA because I can't find another CA who will chain from my current one. I don't want to have to do this based on CSRs. And I don't want to take my web key and somehow sign something else that is like a message. So I really want to see a lot more here before we would go forwards on that. Because I could, and I think Stefan's right. If this is something that CAs want, or even a small group of CAs want, let them say, this is sort of what we're thinking how we would do it, and then just do the simple part of how the extension would go in. But a single CA could easily lie about this. They could say, oh, well, I remember that you did the first, that I issued this first for you a while ago. A bad CA who had forgotten that could either put it way in the past or only the last cert you did, even though you'd done longer. So I think that we need better information on how this would go before we actually do the easy part, which is, what's the OID for the extension?
Yeah, I mean, that's the easy part. Yes.
So you have I'm not channeling anybody else. The thing is, well, if I'm connecting to Microsoft site, and yeah, they should have a key since 95. Google, well, they should have a key since 98. But I've just found this store that sells dog food on the internet. 1 month is fine. 10 years is fine. I don't know how long they've been around. I don't think that's really a good signal for end users.
Well, it's one of those things. With any signal, you've got the problem of false positives and false negatives.
Right.
And this is not a signal that's ever going to give you a clear go, no-go signal. However, if you've got something that's only been created in the past day or 5 days, and it's presenting itself as a bank that's been around for 200 years, then maybe you want to look at this second time before you hand over your password or whatever.
So where would you put the hard line between not suspicious and suspicious?
Where I would intend to use this would be in when we are telling end users how to be safe on the internet, and you explain to them the range of things that companies never do, like companies never tell you to follow links in emails, only they do all the time.
Right, and companies don't sell you things a
Yes.
mere day after they're established?
Yes. Well, if you are presenting yourself as the bank that they've been using for the past 10 years, maybe there's an incongruity there if you're already suspicious.
Perhaps. I still don't see that as a really useful signal.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sort of persuaded a little bit by Rich's point, but I think if you're pitching this as for the web, then you really need to engage with, like, do the web relying parties have any interest in this? And so either you have to present this as something that is not for the web, in which case then you can make a separate case, or you have to, like, engage with, like, the fact that, like, Chrome, Firefox, and I don't see Apple and IE, they want it. I mean, like, there's the sort of natural environment. I'm sorry.
Ron Gondwana, speaking from my experience dealing with banks, they'll send out an email to all their customers saying, we just updated our certificate, it now says we're 1 week old. Real banks will do that. Spammers will do that too. in exactly the same way. Yeah, I have some great stories about banks having security systems that involve you doing some mathematics by hand on a piece of paper to type in a code that is generated from the other things that you put into the form as a security mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of examples of bad things that folk are doing, and right now the problem that I'm having is that it's very difficult for me to tell users what to do to be safe. And if you don't like my proposal, maybe we need to sit down together and come up with a proposal that works. I mean, like, at the end of the day, my bottom line is, at the moment, we have a situation where users have no idea whether they're in the safe part of the internet or the Wild West part of the internet, and I've got no way of telling them how to be sure either. And I think that given all the resources that we have, and given that we're spending all this money on web PKI infrastructure, and I think that it is a problem we should be able to solve if we actually start thinking about it.
At least, I guess the age would be a signal of goodness, even if the lack of age is not necessarily a signal of badness.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you don't like this proposal, what else can we do instead?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
Rich Sauls. Yeah, I have a problem with, I understand, like, as a apple pie and motherhood kind of thing, you want to protect users and tell them, oh, this is the good part of the internet on the, you're on the thoroughfares, and this is the sketchy part. Some of us live on the wrong side of the tracks, and the problem is you can't define that, and you can't define that algorithmically. And I don't think how long an organization has been paying tithes to a commercial organization, no offense, is a good indication of whether or not it's valid. Because you have the case where there's bust outs and things, people take over, right? Or keys are exfiltrated. I don't think this is good for the web PKI. I think it, like I said, the use case I see is for email.
Okay, we're ready for the hum. So it'll be, how many people think that the first issued extension should be part of the proposed charter? Yes and no. So how many people think that the first issued text should be part of the proposed charter? Hum now for yes. Hum now for no. We had 3 unanimous hums, but not all in the same direction. All right. That was our last charter agenda item. We're going to finish a whole 8 minutes early. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. How are you? Thank you for showing up. Yeah. So you missed the part where